Cheers. All right. I see everyone funneling in. Let's see. Let's make sure I call audience. All righty. So we are pulling all the audience in now for our last session of today, our MSP Power Hour. And this went super well yesterday. We had 3 MSPs on, so we're excited to have everyone back. And yesterday we had a lot of good questions. Every MSP that we had on had specific questions to them. Every MSP that we had on was at a different size or a different stage than other MSPs we had on. So it was a really good opportunity for people in the audience to ask questions for MSPs at different stages. And yeah, it was great. So for our order today, for the initial kickoff, we're going to be going Henry, Bob, and then Dawn. So I'm going to go ahead and toss Bob and Dawn into the wings. And you guys can feel free to mute your mic while Henry is chatting. And Henry, are you good to go?
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yeah, we hear you great. So everyone, this is Henry Timm, and I'm going to give him the floor. And Henry, if you need anything at all, I'll throw some questions your way if you need it. But otherwise, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much for having me today. For those that don't know me, my name's Henry Timm. I own a MSP in Northern Indiana called Phantom Technology Solutions. We're a smaller MSP, about 16 people. Been in business for 14 years. And aside from that, I serve on about a half dozen industry boards, different councils and working groups, and had the pleasure of serving with Bob Coppedge and Don Sizer on a couple different groups as well. So happy to be sharing time with them today. I guess since the topic is around things that have kind of accelerated our organizational growth over the last few years here, I wanted to kind of break down 5 key categories that I thought particularly did that for us. So the first would be around joint venture partnerships and identifying other MSPs that you can partner with. For us, the industry is getting to a place where people are hyper verticalizing and specializing in different areas, and there's just too much to be an expert in all the things. So one of the things that we've really tried to do over the last 2-3 years here, especially, is identify other MSPs that do have those specific expertise that we can call on and partner with, and building out a support structure and framework for those partnerships. So I know that if there are certain compliance questions that I have, that there are MSPs such as Dawn's Third Element Consulting that I can call on to leverage in those situations. And inversely, I know that that also turns around, and there are a lot of MSPs that pass us business in those types of scenarios. A second area is around the defensibility in our choices in our stack. So rather than focusing on, I think that this is a good thing for us to have, I don't want it just to be some guy in Indiana said that we should have this for all of our clients. I want there to be defensibility in those choices. So we've really pushed and leaned into adopting security frameworks and looking at how we match compliance. So for us, that means that we're looking at things like CIS as a framework in a lot of our stack decisions and how we're organizing our support structures. So both internally and for our clients. And that also translates to things like the CompTIA Trustmark. It's something that we're actively pursuing because we see that as something that'll be hopefully a differentiator in the market for us, but also letting our clients know that we're taking things seriously and that we're actively pursuing growth, because it's not just a certification to say that, you know, we've done all the right things, but that we are continuing to grow and pursue that excellence. A third item that I would say is investing in your employees' education. We've always been really big on this as far as reimbursing for certifications and education that our employees want to pursue, but it really gives us kind of a leg up when tackling some tough things in the market, as well as when we're competing for potential employees. We also make sure that we are dedicating time each week, so each of our employees gets 2 hours on the clock each week to pursue a certification or college credits or anything of their nature that they're choosing that they would wish in that continuing education, just because this is a ever-changing field. And then a fourth item I would say is investing in your SOPs and documentation. So like our employee education, we also dedicate time each week to updating our SOPs and documentation, as well as developing new ones. So there's a regular scheduled meeting where the managers bring in an SOP that they've been working on. It gets peer reviewed before it gets adopted and put into our documentation. So every week there's something new that's being put forth. And then for a fifth item, and something that we've seen a lot of is focusing on specializations and verticalizations to kind of defend against commoditization in the market. Obviously, we're seeing pressure come from further up in the market from the mega MSPs, as well as your more trunk slammer down market MSPs. So we don't want to be racing to the bottom. And so we're looking at things we can do to further differentiate ourselves by focusing in on key verticals. In our case, that's around healthcare, legal, finance, and compliance-driven verticals. But also, we're looking at how we do that in a way that helps us build and foster further client trust and allows us to grow our pricing, because the value that our clients see is that they see that we truly understand their unique needs and the needs for their market.
That's awesome, Henry. Yeah, I think sounds like you guys have a pretty good understanding of what you're doing and what you're focusing on. As you have been growing your company, how big of a role does culture or team morale and that type of stuff play into your hiring decisions and how you continue to grow in this stage?
Sure. So culture is huge, and I'll be the first to admit that we've fumbled that ball several times through over the years. It's always kind of a learning process for us, but maintaining that and making sure that you play that plays a major role in your hiring decisions is key. So for us, aside from the typical interview process, we are also looking at what's the team think of this individual as far as their values, and whether or not they're going to be able to collaborate effectively with them, and potential impact on their morale. Because obviously they're going to be working very closely with each other. So we'll do, typically they'll have the initial skills assessment, a manager interview, and then typically there's also someone from the team that'll be working with them that'll also be part of the interview process to make sure that everyone is on board and that there's buy-in around that individual being brought on.
Yeah, that's great. I think that multi-step process where you bring in multiple people from your company to ensure that there's a fit here is really important. Last question before we pass it over to Bob is, what KPIs do you focus on to measure success, either operationally or for revenue? And what are you guys really trying to focus on to ensure that you're going in the right direction?
So obviously EBITDA is a very important number that we're looking at, but a lot of the metrics that we're looking at are going to be dependent on the individual position. So we typically try and set those metrics and choose those metrics with buy-in from the manager that's involved with it. So while billable utilization is obviously a good thing to keep an eye on with service desk. That's not the end-all be-all metric around service desk, and there's a lot of other things that may be impacting what that is. So typically, we're looking at making sure that we define those metrics in a way that truly has buy-in from everyone on the team. I think you're muted there.
Oh, I am. I'm sorry about that. I've did that yesterday. So, Henry, thank you so much for running us through where your MSP's at and what you guys are focusing on, what you're doing to grow. We're going to throw you up into the wing of the chat right now, and then bring Bob down for his session. We'll have you back for Q&A.
Yay.
All right, everyone, this is Bob. Bob, why don't you take it away? And like I said, I'll toss you some questions if you need it.
Cool. Yeah. Bob Coppedge, CEO, Simplex IT, Grand Poobah. I've written a couple books, spoken about some co-managed IT for CEOs and all that kind of fun stuff. And it is always interesting when I listen to Henry, and I don't always listen to him because he talks a lot. But it's one of those where I often realize exactly how far behind I am in some cases in terms of development and evolution. But one of the key things that is, and he's very well focused on, his 5 items, all that. I got slop on a notepad and all that. But it's one of those where there has to be a process. There has to be a plan. There has to be some kind of vision that is applied to your organization. And the problem is that, so it looks like there's like 140 people. That's probably roughly 140 organizations. And every one of you is in a different spot from an evolutionary standpoint, from a development standpoint, and also what your strengths and weaknesses are, differentiators and all of that kind of fun stuff. And I'm always hesitant to talk too much about what we do, Simplex IT, because in fear that it's going to come off as this is exactly what you've got to do. But that said, here goes. So first thing is, we're in IT. We are a managed and co-managed service provider. Yay. I still don't know exactly what that means, but I've only been doing it for 14 years. So we'll see how this goes. Or 17 years? Yeah, 17 years. Never mind. I don't do math well. But here's one of the key things is we're in the IT business, and IT is constantly changing. So one of the litmus tests for us to use, and I suggest you do it as well, is are we doing the same things we were doing a year ago? In terms of how we deliver goods and services to our clients and what those goods and services are. And if the answer is yes, we're doing it, but we're doing it better, you're not evolving. Because every 2 to 3 to 4 years, something brand new revolutionizes the industry and revolutionizes how we're supposed to handle it and deal with our clients. If you look at the last 10 years or so, big data, security, AI, those are all revolutionary things. They were all described as revolutionary things, and then the next one is coming on, so on and so forth. And if you're not paying attention from an industry standpoint and from your client's need standpoint, then all you're going to do is you're going to listen to the vendors. And you're going to take what their goods and services are and kind of run with their messaging and their terms and all that kind of fun stuff. And that's you're playing catch up. So one of the things that works well for us is to have that evolutionary mindset that we always have to grow. We always running in fear to a certain degree. And to double down on what Henry said, people have had, that whole what keeps you up at night, what scares you, what are you always concerned about? And since day one, my concern has always been commoditization. Because if my organization is selling a commodity service, the only way to compete is price. And I can't do that. I'm not good at it. There's no way to maintain good profitability and the like. So we're always looking at ways to improve the product delivery and ways to do so in a way that is constant, it's predictable, it's manageable, both for our clients and our potential clients and ourselves. And so one of the things that we do, and this is just not something that you have to do, is we basically have created what we call the model year program. So in 2022, we started doing it. Everybody who we did presentations to and proposals to got a Model 22 proposal. That was a collection of these specific goods and services. That was it, with some of them being optional, some not be, but that was it. So it wasn't a line item thing. It was, we want your organization to succeed because of the information technology investment you're making. And we kind of had co-managed separate. We're not separating them anymore. It's an option. So it's one of those, at the end of the day, we want your organization to be successful. And by the way, story brand, a great sales metaphor to do this. And story brand works really well by either delivering pure managed services or co-managed services with the same messaging. So they don't compete with each other. And that works very, very well indeed. And then the other thing we do is then every year we come up with Model 23, Model 24. We're right now in the final stages of developing Model 25. We go to our existing clients who already know we're doing this model year thing, and we can present, hey, between Model 22 and Model 23, here are the differences. And it's very simple. You know, this year we're seeing these changes, so we're making these changes to the program. And if you want to, you can stick on the prior year. We won't let you stick too far in the past. So it's not a, hard sales pitch, but here's the benefits you're going to see. That has consolidated the conversation, has consolidated the presentation, and it also has made it very simple. So we're not getting involved with line item debates and issues and the like. And we've been doing that, and we've had really good buy-in on that, and it makes the sales process much easier. Another thing that we're big believers in is the TAIA, which is a they ask you answer concept, which is more of a marketing concept. And that one was actually started by a guy who sold swimming pools. And the idea was, anytime he hears a question about his product or his services or something in that general area, he would create a video that educated on that question. And it's a differentiator. If you look at our website, simplex-it.com, you look at our learning center, you will see literally several hundred videos that we've put up answering questions. And some of them contain some call to action and come use our services or the like, but most of them don't. What is an MSP? Why do I need MFA? Is my company too small to be cybersecurity? Why shouldn't I use an MSP? Why should I? So on and so forth. And those have been very successful for us as well, especially as a differentiator. One of the other things is that I think we do a pretty good job is talking about value. And value, I think, is a very underrepresented commodity or value measurement. What is it that our clients will be able to do better because of their relationship with us? Not what do we do, but what will our clients be able to do? Is it productivity improvements? Is it risk management, mitigation, things that they can consume? So they basically look across the table and go, yeah, for the money I'm paying and the inconvenience that you're creating, but I'm getting more value out of the relationship, and we can do the same thing. And by having the value conversation, we can basically say, hey, we're here to make money. We've got to make a profit on this. So don't squeeze every dime out of us you can. And at the same time, we're not going to cut back on our services so that we can make more of a profit. And the value conversation has worked out very well for us in terms of talking about clients and the like. So that's kind of a fast regurgitation of all those things.
I love that. Yeah, those are some really great. I love the model 23, 24, 25 strategy. Sounds like a lot of MSPs are going towards that direction as well, of trying to bundle and package their offerings. One of the things I wanted to ask you is, are you to stay competitive? Are you looking to identify new markets? Are you working on looking at new verticals? How do you guys decide how you're going to scale, or do you guys stay in like a lane that you've found to be very profitable at this time?
So right now, manufacturing seems to be the one that's most receptive to what we're doing and all of that good stuff. So we focus from that aspect of it. That said, we actually are not in any particular vertical from a purposeful standpoint, if that makes sense. We will take some of our messaging. So for example, we're doing some exploratory work in the IoT field because we think that's underserved. And from that aspect of it, there are certain verticals that we are going to go in contact with the but we're going to contact as a how we can make your life easier because here is the consumption of some of the tools and services. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that definitely makes sense. And when you go into these different conversations with either IoT, do you get the sense that the model you've built, these model 22, 23, 24, translates to any industry, or there's specific industries that people gravitate and respond well to that system that you guys have built?
I wouldn't say the industry matters. I would say the investment, the recognition of IT as an investment changes. So if someone is IT is an expenditure, I hate it, I'm just paying it, I want to pay the cheapest I can, they're not going to buy into the model year. You know, that's not for them. They don't want to hear that, hey, there's going to be advances every freaking year, because that just sounds like more money. And that to me has always been a challenge is how do we make sure that our clients want to evolve and mature with us?
Absolutely. Well, this was great, Bob. I'm gonna go ahead and send you back to the wing, and we'll get Dawn down for her session, and then we'll open up for Q&A. We already see one question from Dave, but we'll get to that in about 10 minutes. Bob, thank you so much. Pull Dawn on her way down and send you back up. Dawn, are you ready to go?
I am ready to roll. So thank you guys so much for having me here. I really appreciate it. For those of you that don't know who I am, I'm Dawn Sizer, CEO of Third Element. We are a solution provider. I'm going to use that word in South Central Pennsylvania, or Pennsyltucky, as I like to call it, because we're literally right between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, kind of the weirdness in between. We do the standard MSP things, but in the last, I don't know, probably 2 years, we've kind of gotten back to our consulting roots, and we're opening them up some different verticals, some different things that we're looking at this year. And that's along the lines of, we're actually opening up a marketing arm, and strangely, Bob and I use the same marketing firm. So he's right. StoryBrand works 100%. We have event tech actually coming in. So all of the really cool stuff that you see out at events, we actually have a team that goes out and does that. We're doing access control now, software development, and some other markets that we're getting into, just as, you know, stages of growth. Like I said, we kind of shifted away from that 20 years ago when we started this, and then slowly we're making our way back. So it's kind of funny how things come full circle. As we started building the business a couple years ago, we got into this thing where we all got on this bus, and we're driving the bus down the road, and then like the wheels start to get wobbly and everything starts to feel like it's out of control. And we've all been there, right? And we decided that obviously we need some sort of process, something to make this feel a little bit better, to make things go a little bit better. So we implemented EOS in our organization, and I think that was one of the biggest things that enabled us to communicate better. It brought in company culture. I know both Henry and Bob mentioned that as well. And it really kind of gave everybody the same playing field in the organization, so we could all get back on the bus, everybody's in the right seat, we're all going in the right direction, and it doesn't feel like the wheels are coming off completely anymore. So that helped a lot. Internally, we also use this really cool software piece called Stredi. If you haven't checked them out, by all means, go ahead and do that. I see thumbs up from both of the other guys. So that is how we manage EOS internally. One of the things that I do want to mention with that, like going back to our consulting roots, right? Good books for everybody to read, right? Blue Ocean Shift is a great one. If you haven't read that, or just Blue Ocean Strategy, it'll kind of give you a really good idea of how to find new markets to really take a look at with your business, and ways that you can expand and do different things. So I think that's a really great place to have that go in. Other things that the guys have already talked about were processes and SOPs and documentation, all of that really cool stuff, right? You 100% need that to both expand, to grow, and to make sure that everybody's doing things the same way. Some of you are going to be like, well, I use a particular program for this, you know, I use a documentation system, I'm using this particular thing. And what we found is that's fantastic. Client documentation goes in one thing because it should all live together, but your internal documentation and the way that you do things and the way that you do your processes, ours live in a program called Trainual. And it's a way to take people from the day that they sign in and say, we're going to join your organization. I can actually kick them out a thing that's, here's where our building is, here's where we park, here's all of the documentation around that, and then actually take them through our training process, which is a full 90-day onboarding for all of our folks, and they get all of their training in little bites. So it's a great way to do that. It also gives them a way to go through all of the policies that they need to sign off on and make sure that you're getting all those sign-offs. So it's just a great way to keep everything together. And as you're going forward, once something is created, all you have to do is edit it now and then, and you don't have to keep reinventing the wheel over and over and over again. So that's one of those things that we found is really, really helpful. But it also allows us to maintain company culture as well, because it really does define in our processes, in our procedures, that kind of thing, how we go through and deal with that. And ours are super simple. It's awesome comes standard, rock solid service, and we give a shit. Those three, those are our company core values, and we want to make sure that everybody gets that, lives it, and maintains it. Because one toxic employee makes for all toxic employees, and we don't want that to happen. So we are very focused on making sure that everybody lives and breathes those core values. So other things that we are doing to grow, right? We are looking right now for those micro MSPs that want to be a part of something bigger and bring them in via acquisition. And that's everywhere that we have clients throughout the United States. So we are looking for those folks right now. So if you are a micro MSP and you want to be a part of something bigger, leave that out there. +1 for Bob's model year, right? That was excellent. If you aren't doing that right now, somebody's asking what platform. Yep, Henry got it. Thanks. That model year thing is huge, right? That's a huge value add for your clients. And make sure that when you're talking about them, like, 2025's model year and all of the things that we've had before, and here's our value adds for this year, because you might be throwing things in there that they're not costing you anything, they're not costing the client anything, but you're adding value to the client, and make sure that you're calling that out. So I think that's one of those things. And I've probably talked enough. Jamie, what else do I have?
Yeah, I'm actually going to follow up on something you mentioned: mergers and acquisitions. Yesterday, all three MSPs, and I'm not sure if, and we'll get to this, if Henry or Bob are in that same bucket, but all three yesterday were in the process of either getting into doing M&A or have been doing it for a while. When you are evaluating these MSPs for M&A, what do you look for? What does a successful MSP look like? What does that look like to you?
The couple that we've taken a look at, I've looked at their books first, right? And you can usually tell if somebody is trying to get away from a failing business by looking at their books. And the ones that I've looked at through Business Broker so far, like to a T, have been horrifically failing businesses that people are trying to get out from under. So we're stepping away from business brokers and talking to people face to face instead.
One of the sentiments that was resounding yesterday was definitely we look to acquire MSPs that aren't looking to sell. Is typically how they find the MSPs that are working. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's true. I think there's a lot of people out there that have created an MSP. It's a successful business, but they're not necessarily wanting to run the business. I know for me, I'm from a technical background. There are plenty of days and I'm like, I could really just have a margarita cart and I'd be happier. So I'm sure plenty of people are in that same boat. And if that's something that they're looking to do, by all means, talk to some of the other MSPs that are out there. Chances are you can go back to being a tech and being a really well compensated tech without having to deal with all the extra junk that we don't always want to deal with as business owners.
Absolutely. And when it comes to the junk that sometimes the MSP business owners deal with, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges for growth for an MSP, whether that's at your own MSP that you've seen or that other MSPs might struggle with?
100% I'm going to say people, right? It's always going to be people. Doesn't matter if it's your people, clients' people, outside people, it's people. It's just people. not all of us are people. So it's hard to deal with employee issues, right? It's hard to deal with client issues. There are things that we want to like avoid, right? There's nobody wants to deal with confrontation, that kind of stuff that we have to go deal with usually on the daily. So, I mean, I think that's going to be the big one. And then, you know, obviously having the money conversations with clients isn't always the best, you know, conversation that you want to have either. But again, boils back down to people.
Absolutely. Well, awesome. I'm going to go ahead and pull Henry and Bob back down to the stage, and I have a handful of questions for y'all. And then anytime questions pop up from our audience, we'll let y'all go and answer those. I'm going to give the floor to Henry and Bob real quick and ask you guys a similar question I just asked Dawn. Is, are you guys considering M&A? Have you done it? Are you working on it? Is that something that's in your roadmap? And if it is, what are you looking for? Or if either of you are an MSP that is looking to get acquired, how are you positioning your MSP to be in that position? And I'll send it to Bob first, and then Henry will go to you. Oh, Bob, you're muted.
And honestly, everyone is like, why did you tell him that? Oh. So what should have happened is Henry should have been murmuring underneath, this is what Bob's actually saying. So from my aspect of it, you know, it's one of those where we're going through, and Henry kind of hinted that he's had some in the past. I've had over the past year or so some of those plateau moments where you kind of have to, what got us here won't get us there kind of thing. And both Dawn would say also from not just a personnel standpoint, but also from a process standpoint and all that kind of fun stuff. So right now that's taking up on the tail end of that process, that's taking up most of my time. And I honestly don't know, we've had a couple of minor talks as far as small MSP acquisition and usually just expanding some of our geographical reach and all of that. But that's as far as I've taken it at this point.
Awesome. Henry, what about you?
We hadn't previously, but are starting to feel out some potential partnerships or mergers. I think one of the key things that has been a driving consideration around that is an alignment of values. Do you guys serve a common mission and purpose, and do you have some common core values? Beyond that, all the tools and everything else, those can all fall into place and you can figure out integrations. But without that core piece of alignment on your mission and those values, I think it's an uphill battle.
Absolutely. Henry and Bob, I'm going to send this question to you as well that I just sent to Dawn, and that was, what is one of the largest challenges you face for growing as an MSP, or do you think MSPs in general face for growing? And Henry, you were already on the hot mic, so I'll keep this here with you, then we'll go to Bob.
Yeah, I think probably one of the hardest things right now is not so much the commoditization, but the growing complexity of the industry, and that there's really this pressure to figure out your specialization. So if you haven't already done that, you really need to figure out what are you good at and lean into that.
Absolutely. And Bob?
Yeah, I would say there's a transition in the industry, and I've talked about this at other events and talking, where most of the new stuff is not coming from technology. It's coming from information. And again, you look at the last three big things, big data, security, AI, I would state that those are more implementations and results of information and less of technology. There's less spinning wheels and blinking lights and the like. And the skill set needed to handle information is very different than the skill set needed to handle technology. And I think a lot of MSPs and a lot of IT people in general don't recognize the severity of the different skill sets that are needed for these things. And so they're going after these issues and these opportunities and these challenges and risks with the same tool sets that got them great servers. And I think that's you take that as very different. You take the security environment as very different, and you take the supply chain, both in terms of how we consume supplies and how we deal with people, And those are all generational changes that have happened within the last 5-10 years to both our clients and ourselves. And I think in some cases we're doing a very good job, but like everything else, it is a huge challenge, and I'm not sure we're accepting the challenges honestly as we could be.
To Bob's point there, the whole people, process, technology, like anyone can do the technology, anyone can buy the technology. It's the people and process portion of that that's the variables that we can control and impact a lot, and really going to drive that differentiator.
Well, and if you get right down to it, if you're hiring an MSP, right, if you're looking at, one of the larger organizations that you work with, and they're like, I'm down to 2 people, how do I choose? Well, if you're all using the same technology, what's the difference, right? So it really does boil down to people and process. So how do you make yourself stand out with both your people, your skills, and the processes that you should be sharing with your client in some way, shape, or form?
That's great. One question I had for all 3 of you, and we'll keep it with Don for now because you're already on the mic. Are there sales or marketing tactics that you find overrated or underrated that MSPs are currently using?
Oh, what's the best way to say this? Yes. So I think there's a million different ways of coming at this. I think it's more a matter of what is the way that you want your ideal client to see you, and how are you building that out in a way that makes you stand out from other people? What's the differentiator that you're allowing that potential client to see? And I think that's the biggest thing. And what I'm not seeing from marketing agencies that are relative to our space for the most part, I'm going to put that out there. There are outliers to this. They're still coming out with, well, if you attach $1 to this particular thing and send out 1 million of them, that's going to, get you something. And quite honestly, what got you to where you are, like you guys said, is not going to get you to that next thing. So if you're not changing your tactics, if you're not looking at a different strategy, if you're doing the same thing on repeat, it's no different than the internal people that you have, and you're trying to figure out why on God's green earth are these people not progressing in their skills and their anything. Is because they're reliving the same year on repeat over and over and over again. And it's the same thing with marketing. That was a really long answer. Sorry.
No, I think that was great. Henry, do you have any thoughts on what Don said, or answer the question yourself?
Yeah, I guess I see 2 real big risks or traps that people fall into in our industry, and more so, I think, in your smaller MSP and larger mega MSPs is this either they don't own the relationship with the client very well, which more true, I think, on the mega MSP side of things, where we're going to turn X number of calls, X number of contacts in order to meet the numbers that we want, and it's just a pure numbers game, and they don't lean into that relationship or maintain it the way they should be. And then on the other side of that, though, is that there's people that are so driven by their ego that they don't own that, that they are human, that they're going to make mistakes, and they're still learning and have to work through these things with their clients as technology changes, as the industry changes. And I think that being aware of both of those things can really help you kind of better that relationship with your client and communicate your value in a much better way and more sustainable relationship.
Absolutely. And Bob, we'll let you answer it as well. And then we do have a question that we'll get to right after you're done your answer.
Cool. So to double down on what Don and Henry said, this industry was born. First of all, this industry is overrated. We're not that interesting. We're not that exciting. We're just a different way to make sure IT works well for our clients. That's it. Get over the superiority complex. Okay. And marketing in the MSP business was based on the idea of we can do it cheaper than your employee. That was it. And now most marketing, in my opinion, is still based on Number one, let me tell you how wonderful we are. We are absolutely fantastic. Do you know we do backups? You may not have realized that, but yep, we back up computers. Yay. And we do these firewall things. They're too complicated for you to understand, but they're absolutely fantastic. So we do this superiority complex crap all of the time, which doesn't work well in co-managed. Who knew? And then the other thing we do is if you're not using us, your world is in trouble because you're probably already hacked, your backups probably don't work, all this. And both are so arrogant, they're so condescending, they're so fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And whether, there's a duck in the box or there's a dollar bill associated or whatever. And also, so much marketing is exactly the same as the guy down the street from you. Okay? And so it is one of those where you have to have that differentiator. You have to have that message. You have to have that. Here's the value that you're going to get out of the relationship I'm recommending, because there is going to be a value. And if you have internal IT, we're going to partner together to bring that value together. But that's a very different messaging.
Absolutely. Oh, very well said there. We're going to go ahead and jump into Sheila's question. Bob, we'll keep it right with you, and we'll go through. We'll let each of you answer this. What criteria determines your ideal client, and how/when do you assess for that? Bob, you can take it away.
So number one is tell me about, and this gets down to a point that I think Douglas was making about that we're not just your IT guys. Are you open to having discussions about the process and the value you get out of using IT? If that's not of interest to you, I can't make it interesting. But that's where a lot of the value you're going to get out of our relationship is. So I want to know if you're going to be a bad client as soon as possible so we can both end this and go on with our lives. So that first value proposition, are you interested? Are you open? Are you eager to get better value out of your IT?
Love that. And Henry, what about you?
Yeah, I think the earlier the better, that you can move kind of some self-selecting criteria around who it is that fits that ideal client. Obviously, if they're looking for the cheapest and for a numbers game, they're not for us, and we want that to be known up front. We're not going to be the cheapest person. Don't waste our time. Don't waste your time. There are plenty of other people out there that will do that. So I think as many resources and things that you can provide on the front end when you're prospecting to help them kind of do that self-selection for you, the better. So.
Absolutely. And Don?
I mean, the first couple conversations that we have, I want to talk about their business, right? I want to know about their business. How are they going to market? What does that look like for them? Do they have a business plan? Can I take a look at it? Are they looking to grow? And then do they have what our minimum is on users, right? Because we do have a minimum, because there's a certain tipping point once you get to a certain size MSP where it just doesn't make sense anymore to have a 3-person company unless they're doing some very specific things and they're willing to pay you what you're looking for. So there's that kind of stuff. But also, if you're not going to take my recommendations on things, right? Especially around security, you can't be my client. If you know better than me, why are you hiring me? That seems silly. I don't do that. Like if I'm hiring an expert, I want to have an expert. I don't want to be the expert. I want you to teach me how to understand what it is that you do and make sure that I can at least speak semi-intelligently about that thing that I'm not an expert at, well enough to understand the value that I'm getting, what you're bringing me, and how we move forward together.
That's awesome. Great question, Sheila. Next question I have for y'all is around pricing models and how you guys have. I know, Bob, you went your model 22, 23. I'm assuming pricing models get tied into that, but I'd love to give each of you a few minutes to talk about how you guys decided to do pricing models and how you sell your services at your MSP. And Don, I'll just keep it with you. Talk about that.
Yeah, so we are a all-you-can-eat shop, which some people are like, no, thank you. That's not for us. but it works for us. And we are very transparent in our licensing. So our licensing is separate from our service cost. We have project costs in addition to that. If it's outside of our MSA or our SOW, then those are projects, and we charge separately from those. We don't do adds, move, changes. The only thing that you're going to see go up and down is if you're adding or getting rid of people. That's just how we do it because it keeps it simple for our clients. And we do a good bit of co-manage the same way that Bob does, and that seems to work out really, really well in that co-managed situation. They seem to get it that way for whatever reason. So that's us.
Nice. And Henry, what about yourself?
We pushed into the fully managed. We used to do a tiered approach, and I can tell you that it sets up too much conflict and not enough alignment between you and your clients, with the exception of co-managed. Obviously, you're going to carve out and make some exceptions there about what best suits a client with those needs, but in general, pushing into that fully managed is really it makes everyone much happier and delivers a better result. I will say though that special consideration around compliance requirements, of course.
Absolutely. And Bob?
Yeah, they're both wrong. I mean, there's no other way to put it. But here is the thing: is that to the MSPs out there, you need to have something that you can describe that makes sense, that is understandable, and that has minimal surprises, however you do it. So we do pretty much what they're saying, the all-you-can-eat model, to manage and maintain the status quo. We usually on-site is either an additional monthly charge or it is billable, but that's clearly stated up front, and so on and so forth. And for co-managed, the worst thing you can do is to have your client define your co-managed offering. Okay, so you need to make it so your co-managed offerings are well defined, so they don't require your team to learn how to support new tools or new stacks or new ways of layering the responsibility. Because that's just the kiss of death. It sounds great because you won that one opportunity, but then you're going to be reinventing the wheel every freaking time, and everyone's going to hate everybody, which is consistent, yes, but
yeah,
scope creep never happens, Bob. I don't know what you're.
No, but creep does.
Absolutely. Don, I think this question was for you, so I'm going to send it to you first. It's how do you handle ongoing overutilization with all-you-can-eat plans?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. So we do monitor that on the regular and double check to make sure that no one is overutilizing the all-you-can-eat plan. Typically, we don't have that scenario. We did have one not too long ago, and I'm going to be very clear and transparent about how this all went down. We did notice that one client there were just a lot of tickets, just a lot, like way more than there should be. So we started digging into it and really looking at it. And what we had was a scenario where I think it was people didn't really want to work. So they were creating reasons that they couldn't get their job done. And we started looking into it, and that they were literally like deleting meetings off of their calendars and saying that they accepted it, but it just disappeared. So we couldn't show up. And we can see where they were deleting it off their calendar, so we fired them.
I'm gonna have
That's a good way to handle it.
Problem solved.
Yeah, problem solved real quick.
So the next meeting I don't want to take with Bob, I'll just delete it.
Exactly. How you handle
the next meeting I have with me, I'll delete it. But I think this is great. So the one caveat I'll add to this as far as Don goes is, again, I get back to that value conversation we have up front with a client. I want the client to understand that I'm here to make a profit. And that profit is critical for us to stay in business. And so if our relationship is such that I can't make a profit, then I need to do something about that. And sometimes it is a training to the client. Sometimes it's a fixing something that we didn't it's not working as well. Sometimes it's whatever, but we both have to be open to the fact that we need to resolve this issue. Similarly, if they're looking at the relationship and saying, boy, there's a component of support or service that isn't working, I have to be equally engaged in fixing that. So, and the fix can be party A fires party B. Nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with a square peg, and there's nothing wrong with a round hole.
Correct. I think the other thing that we want to be clear about, though, is the whole, if your client is not okay with you making money, they're not a good fit for you.
Yep.
Right? And that's just a conversation. And Bob alluded to that. It was one of those, like, just make sure you're having good, transparent conversations. And you're like, hey, exactly, we have to have a sustainable business. I mean, that's a really, really good scenario. And as long as they understand that and everybody's supportive of that, you should have a good client.
Yeah. Along this lines, and as far as, the consumption of an all-you-can-eat plan, you should be monitoring and keeping track of the profitability of your contracts too. Your PSA should do that for you, and if not, be looking at a PSA that does.
Absolutely. Well, we only have 9 minutes remaining, actually 8 minutes remaining. So I'm going to give you each a few minutes to give your final words of advice. If there's an MSP listening that's looking to grow, that's looking to continue to scale or go through different hiring or jump into different verticals, whatever you guys want to focus on for your closing thoughts, you can do that. But yeah, I want to give each of you a few minutes just to wrap up and give some final words of advice to the MSPs in the room. So Bob, why don't we start with you?
First of all, give up. I mean, let's face it. It's not worth it. No, first of all, and I can't speak for Don and Henry, but accept the fact that everyone you talk to faces more, especially when we're up here going about, this is what we do, and this is how we do it. We're all screwing up. We've done so magnificently in the past. We've all learned from the mistakes. We've all done dumb things, all of that kind of fun stuff. Failure is an option. The best of strategy is not guaranteed to succeed. The worst of strategy may work, and you'll think it's great, but you just lucked out. But the thing is know thyself. Have an idea of what level of maturity you're at from a marketing standpoint, from a service delivery standpoint, from a bookkeeping standpoint, and be realistic about that. Talk to peers and share thoughts or ideas. What works best, what works best, and then, okay, what are you going to nudge, and are you looking to be evolutionary, or are you looking to be revolutionary with yourself? And don't experiment on your existing clients if they're good clients. Okay? Didn't work for Frankenstein. All right? So look for the value conversations alike. Talk with new clients. Introduce things out that way. Then you can go and retrofit the old clients. But engage with the concept that you are going to evolve. You're going to evolve as an MSP, and you're going to evolve as a business leader. And reach out to people like Henry, like Dawn, not so much me, because, no, to me too, if you're desperate, and ask the questions. Rant off.
I love that. Henry, I'll send it your way.
Yeah, I guess I would say is get outside of your comfort zone, outside of your bubble. There's absolutely a content bubble here in the MSP industry, and go find some and network with people that are in kind of tangential events in the industry, and that kind of push you outside of that, whether that's going to be on marketing initiatives or content generation type of things, or some of the security conferences that are out there, like a B-Sides, or I know that Dawn just did ScaleCon as well. It's just kind of like these things that you're not seeing the same people. You're getting pushed to try new ideas and see it from a different perspective. I think that's huge in enabling some growth for your organization.
Absolutely. And Dawn, what about yourself?
So I would say, our businesses, especially if you're an owner, it's your baby, right? And nobody loves your baby the way that nobody thinks your baby's pretty as you do, and all of those fun things. But the reality is that the things that you're doing in your business, focus on the things that make you money And anything that you can pay somebody else to do cheaper than you, hire them to do that, right? Give up some control, and it's going to be painful and miserable, and you're going to hate it, and you're going to fight it, and it's going to feel awful. But get yourself an assistant, get yourself account managers. If you are like more than 5 to 7 people and you don't have an account manager, do that tomorrow. That would be a good thing to do. And if you don't have an assistant, get one of those. You're gonna need it.
Love that. Well, that's it. What do you guys think? Do you guys have fun? Was this good for you guys? Did you enjoy talking to these MSPs in the room?
Oh yeah,
Bestest time ever.
I always have a good time when I get to hang out with smart people like these two.
Exactly. Well, cool. That wraps up day 2 of DCD. This was our 3rd session of the day, the MSP Power Hour. We're super thankful for Bob, Henry, and Dawn for all coming in and sharing some wisdom and some advice for y'all. We'll be back for our last day of DCD tomorrow morning, starting at, or I guess afternoon, 12 o'clock Eastern. That is when we'll kick off, and we have 3 more sessions tomorrow, and we're super excited. So thank you guys for coming. Thank you to our wonderful speakers, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow. Have a great evening, everyone.